diversity win. The YouTube travel / game show that you watch has finally passed the Bechdel test after 15 seasons.
Welcome to Baggage Claim, an unofficial Jet Lag the Game companion podcast. Today, we're unpacking episode 2 of season 15, Tag All-Stars. I'm Kira.
I'm Jaya.
And I'm Casey.
Jaya, what's the latest you've ever arrived for a flight and still made it?
Okay, so I am very much a get to the airport way too early kind of guy, so I didn't really have an answer for this until I realized that layovers were valid. The latest I have ever arrived to a gate was this February. I had a 40-minute layover in Charlotte, which is already tight because my home airport's really little, and so you have to get from the Big Planes terminal to the ass end of the regional jets terminal, which is usually like 15-20 minute walk. But then we were delayed taking off from Boston because there was snow in Charlotte, and North Carolina can't deal with snow. And so then my layover ended up being a really nice and tight 21 minutes. So I had 6 minutes to do that 20-minute walk and get to my next flight before boarding closed. And I ran like I have never run before through the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. And I made it to my flight exactly 1 minute before boarding was supposed to close. And I found out that they hadn't even freaking started boarding the plane yet.
Honestly, that's the best.
I guess.
It was a relief. It was a huge relief, but oh my god, it was insane.
That's so stressful.
Terrifying.
Casey, what about you?
So, like Jaya, I also like to get to the airport super early because I am a chronic travel anxiety person.
Real.
And because I much prefer just sitting in the airport and knowing that I'm there.
I like hanging out and watching runways.
Right?
It's so fun.
I like to people watch. However, sometimes you can plan ahead and still the travel gods can smite you. This was only a few months ago. This was in May. I was flying from DC to San Francisco and I was taking the metro all the way out to Dulles, which is like, over an hour out there for me. And I gave myself plenty of time. Like, I think I was planning on getting to the airport like almost 2 hours early. But the metro was just so delayed, and the delays just kept on getting longer and longer. And I got to the airport 13 minutes before doors closed on my flight.
Oh my god.
I have never been more anxious traveling in my life. I sprinted to security, but because the Dulles airport is so annoying, it's the
worst airport in the freaking world.
I really don't like it. And I had to, of course, take this stupid air train to the next terminal. But something magical happened, and my gate was the first gate in the other terminal. And I made it to my gate 2 minutes before the doors closed. And as soon as I got on the plane, they closed the doors and we took off. Everything in my mind was just like, I'm LARPing jet lag right now.
Yeah.
Just stay calm. They do this all the time. And you know what? I did survive. And what I will say is after that experience, I get to the airport even earlier. This has not impacted my worries at all.
I will say it is so comforting if I'm having a stressful travel day that I can simply take a selfie, text it to you guys, and say LARPing jet lag right now, sad face, fighting for my life at the airport.
Literally the agonies.
Exactly. I also am a getting to the airport very, very early kind of person. So mine is also a layover story, which is that there was some summer, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where I was flying back to Philly to spend the summer doing research at my college campus. And I had a 40-minute layover in Denver, and I normally don't have a layover. But my first flight was half an hour delayed.
Oh, God.
And my new gate in Denver was the furthest gate away. Yeah. So I felt like I was sprinting maybe 100 miles. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
And I arrived at my gate as they announced boarding final group. And so I just full sprinted onto the plane. And ultimately, it was totally fine. I feel like most of the time, though, when I have a layover, there's at least a group of us who have the same layover. I feel like I was the only person who had this layover. So I was really sprinting for my life there, but then ultimately it was fine. Well, let's jump into the recap. This was a jam-packed episode. The episode starts with Sam and Toby on the train from Leon to Reims, finally moving for the first time in over 4 hours and narrowly missing Ben and Brian, whose train was only 20 minutes away. Meanwhile, Michelle and Adam race to catch a train from Paris to Champagne-Ardenne to try to cut off the southern route. Sam and Toby correctly predict that one of the teams may be close enough to catch them when they arrive at the station, and Toby casts a spell, or gets a message from the train gods, or otherwise goes psychic mode to correctly guess that between the two teams of chasers, they should specifically freeze Adam and Michelle, successfully preventing them from catching up. This leaves Adam and Michelle in a pickle. They identify that Sam and Toby have a route through Paris that could get them all the way to the Saint-Malo ferry by the end of the day, and because of the freeze, they have no way to stop it. As a Hail Mary, they call Ben and Brian to strategize, but Ben and Brian don't answer because they're busy watching a movie and sharing some kettle corn while they wait for their next train out of Reims. Luckily for all 4 chasers, Sam and Toby can't start racing towards their end location just yet because they need to go just a little further to fully clear their 25-mile curse. They plan to take a bus to Prunay and then zoom all the way back en route to Paris before the freeze period ends, which would have been great if their bus didn't immediately get hit by the bus behind them. The full freeze period runs out while they're on the bus, leaving Adam and Michelle enough time to call an Uber and trace Sam and Toby's eventual path to Prunay. But while Adam and Michelle are frantic, Sam and Toby regain a new sense of calm, thinking that if they haven't been caught yet, they must be in the clear. They clear their curse and start working on the Take to the Skies challenge until Adam and Michelle manage to get the first tag of the game like lions going in for the kill. It's at this moment that all my dreams came true and we get an on-screen Toby and Michelle hug and mini convo, which means your favorite travel-based YouTube game show officially passes the Bechdel test.
Yes!
The players have no time to celebrate though, as Adam and Michelle race off to start their run. They breeze through their first challenge of identifying where the chasers are, and then they have some tough decisions to make on how to escape Sam and Toby, who are so close behind them. They aim to take a train from Champagne-Ardenne to Strasbourg, but they identify that because of train connections, they'll be sitting ducks at the station for 55 minutes, 10 minutes longer than a freeze period would cover. They decide to get off one stop earlier than Champagne-Ardenne to kill time, eventually freezing Sam and Toby post-Uber at the perfect time. Adam and Michelle pull the Get Lucky on Coin Flips challenge, which they manage to do just in the nick of time before boarding their train to Strasbourg, once again proving Adam's good luck with challenges. With the runners on a huge head start, and the chasers all either frozen or extremely far away, it seems all may be lost, until Brian comes up with a plan to fly to Zurich, building animosity between the chaser teams and anticipation in the hearts of the audience.
Woohoo!
To conclude our recap, I've come up with a title to highlight the most important moment of the episode. For me, this was really an episode of strong freezes. So I have come up with the title, Ice Ice Baby, which I think also works because the first line of the song is, all right, stop, collaborate, and listen, which also feels appropriate for this season.
I'm mad about how well that fits.
It really does.
Do either of you have any suggestions?
So I thought it was really powerful that Toby was able to psychically guess that it would be Adam and Michelle after them and freeze them at the right time. So I'm proposing the title Psychic Damage.
Love it.
Ooh.
I also wanted to propose the title Diversity Win. The YouTube travel/game show that you watch has finally passed the Bechdel test after 15 seasons.
Woohoo!
I like that one the best.
It is perfect. All right, well, with that, I will pass things over to Jaya.
Thanks, Kira. Welcome back to the Strat Chat, our segment where we break down the strategy and gameplay of the episode. This episode was chock full of interesting and new strategies being unlocked, particularly from the chasers, so I'll try my best to summarize. Some of the biggest strategy moves in this episode came from one team being in a clearly and significantly worse position than the other one, and unfortunately for them, both times it was Ben and Brian. First, we saw Adam and Michelle zipping off to go catch Sam and Toby, while poor Ben and Brian got stuck in Leon. They ended up having some of the most relaxed time we've ever seen anyone having in a game of tag, though, if not in all of jet lag. And they went to the movies before getting on their train back to Paris. Instead of chilling out so hard, do you guys think Ben and Brian should have been doing anything to help Adam and Michelle? In which situations do you think it's advantageous for the non-catch chasers to be helping the catch chasers? And how could they maybe most effectively help?
I think this is a really good question, and it reminds me a little bit of Capture the Flag, where there were moments when one of the team members would be going in to capture their flag, and the other team member would be looking for routes out, or sort of be taking the lay of the land, and so it would be sort of puppeteer. I'm wondering whether that could have been helpful just to get 4 brains on the case. Because I do feel like as long as one team seems clearly very far away in a much worse position, it should be their goal to have the catch happen quickly. Because if Ben and Brian think they're probably not going to get the catch, then they just need the runner to switch over so that they can start being in a more advantageous position for the next catch.
I think that this was definitely a defining moment in Ben and Brian's chasing strategy, which I think has become pretty clear over these 2 episodes that they are prioritizing themselves getting the catch. Yeah. I think we see Adam and Michelle also really wanting to get the catch themselves, but also being worried about that potential for Sam and Toby to just hit their end location and win the whole game. And at the end of this episode, we see Sam and Toby, I think, really wanting to work with Ben and Brian. Sam had like this whole route that he thought would be most advantageous for Ben and Brian to take in order for, honestly, to like set them up for a catch better, like to make sure that they're trying to work for the catch. And I think Ben and Brian here, they definitely were stuck in that there weren't any trains out for an hour and a half. And so there wasn't anything that they could do to move closer to a more advantageous station or hub or to go in for a catch. But I think that because of that, they were like, we're not going to help Adam and Michelle plan out. Yeah. We're not going to look at their potential routes or anything. And I mean, was that successful for them? I don't know. But I think it definitely was intentional.
Yes.
The situations where it might make sense for the non-catch chasers to not be helping would be one where if the runner gets a little bit farther, if the catch is made a little bit more slowly, then maybe their position isn't going to be as bad starting the next run.
Right.
So, like, if there had been a high-speed train from Paris to somewhere along the route that Sam and Toby were on, or along the route that Adam and Michelle were soon about to go on, they could have maybe tried to slow down Adam and Michelle in order to make that catch happen closer to their high-speed route. But they didn't have an easy way out of there if anybody got farther. And so I agree with you. I think the catch happening earlier was the best for both teams.
Yes.
Well, at least I'm glad that Adam and Michelle made that catch. Their crisis on the train platform ended up being okay.
Yes.
But, oh boy, that was stressful.
Totally.
And I think it would have been really helpful for them to have 2 other people looking at their routes.
I mean, it was such a funny juxtaposition to see.
It was incredibly funny.
To see Adam and Michelle losing their minds and Ben and Brian just eating popcorn at the movies.
Well, I like to picture the moment where if Sam and Toby had gotten their perfect bus route where they were able to fully get past and be en route to Paris before the freeze period ended, I like to picture the phone call after Ben and Brian got out of the movies where Adam and Michelle would have to be like, hey guys, so it's sort of irreparably done.
Yeah, I think once the bus got hit by another bus and everything slowed down a lot, it felt like them going to the movies and hanging out was simply not as unforgivable as it had felt immediately, because immediately I was like, well, Sam and Toby have a perfect route, and now they're simply going to win if you guys aren't either paying attention, trying to find a weird route back to Paris, or able to help out. But that didn't end up happening, and so I'm glad. I'm glad it was all okay. Well, then immediately after making the catch, Sam and Toby go right after Adam and Michelle, which again, leaves Ben and Brian in Paris, just so far away from any of the region that's going to be used in this run. And their situation ends up being so dire that an airplane might be their best option. Thinking about this, I realized that a plane might only be viable in a 3-team game of tag like this, where it's possible for a chaser to be so far behind the runners that a plane is as good as a train. Because the way that I see it, planes are only really useful for connecting 2 major cities at a bit of a distance. And generally, in 2-team tag, when the runner is really far ahead of the chasers, it's not usually because they're in 2 different cities, but instead because someone got stuck in a remote area without a train in the right direction for a while. Mm-hmm. Versus in 3-team tag, it's totally possible for one set of chasers to just be so far behind the runners and in a different city that it's possible to take a plane to cut off the runners by flying into a city in their wind zone. So all that is to say is I don't think I see a plane being super viable for a chaser pretty much ever in 2-team tag. What do you both think about that? When do you see planes being viable? And do you think they're likely to come up again if they do more 3-team tag seasons? Or do you think it's just kind of a fluke that this worked here?
I completely agree with your assessment that it is much more viable in these 3-team tag seasons where one team has the possibility of being so far away. But what I also do think is critical to Ben and Brian thinking that a plane is useful here is that they're not trying to catch up to the runners. They're just trying to get ahead of the runners. Yeah. And so because of that, I do wonder if maybe in an edge case in a 2-team tag, if the trains are just not at all advantageous or frequent or fast between the chasers and where the runner is currently, if a plane might be maybe an okay choice to get them way ahead of the runner and then work back towards them.
Like if the runners have some sort of choke point in some city really deep in their win region. Yeah. I don't know, maybe even like for Sam and Toby, how Paris is for them, where they're pretty much gonna have to go through it at some point. If the chasers can fly there earlier than the runners hit that sort of choke point, then maybe that's really where a plane's gonna come up.
It also makes me think about what Sam was talking about in the episode about how much territory the chasers are willing to cede, where it feels like, honestly, maybe I'm being naive, but I feel like a plane would work in a normal season of 2-team tag, where if right at the beginning the chasers decide to cede quite a lot of territory and fly really close to the specific win location and then slowly work their way back, that feels like maybe not a fail-proof, but a pretty close to fail-proof method, because then you're getting in front of the runner as quickly as you can, but you're also accepting that the tag is going to happen very deep into the win region, which then is not advantageous. So this feels to me like a pretty guaranteed way to get a tag, but at what cost, so to say? Maybe in that way it still wouldn't be advantageous. I'm thinking also back to tag 2, when Adam almost had his winning run and Sam and Ben were really looking at flight, saying, well, is there any way Adam is so much further ahead and trains are just going to be directly following behind? The only way to actually get in front of him would be a plane, because anything else would be following behind and banking on Adam slowing down. But I do think that's different from here, like both of you have been saying, where one team can just be so far behind that it's not even feasible to follow behind the runners, where I do feel like planes might end up being pretty advantageous. They're a way of catching up that gets you in front of the runners.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, just as long as you can sort of verify that you're gonna be making it to that city and making it off your plane and back onto the train routes in a city before the runner has any ability to get there. Because if there's even a chance that the runner is gonna pass you by before you, like, get off your plane or get on the train, you might be kind of screwed, and then you've also taken a plane and are at the airport.
Well, and that's the other thing that does make me nervous, is that, yes, Deutsche Bahn is tricky and tough, and clearly we've seen other examples of trains having delays or being canceled, But the process of taking a train is so much quicker than the process of taking a plane. So you might say, oh my gosh, it's a 45-minute flight or it's an hour-long flight. That's so much faster than a 4-hour train ride. But is it?
You have to get to the airport.
You have to go through security. You have to deplane. You have to then get a taxi out. The whole process is really long. And so it might end up being roughly the same amount of time. And so it really is weighing that balance.
Especially because most airports are decently far out of the center of the city. Like, the central train station, especially in Europe, is going to be city center.
Right.
But the central airport is certainly not going to be.
Right, and especially considering that if everyone is taking a train, so if the runners are taking a train and the chasers are taking a train, then there's a higher chance that you will, by chance, end up in the same station. Whereas the runner is probably not going to take a plane. It is quite unlikely, and we've never seen it happen before. It might happen in this season, but that feels like a really big swing for a runner to take a plane, which means that in order for a chaser to take a plane, they are guaranteeing that they are not going to bump into the runner because they are going out of their way, taking a different form of transportation that is not going to overlap with where the runners might be.
Yeah, and like, even if the runner gets super delayed, like, let's say there's a signal fault, if the runner's going south, the airport they're flying into is south, and there's a signal fault somewhere north of the airport, then what? Then the chaser can't get across that either. They're just sort of on opposite sides of a river, basically.
Right. Oh, it's very interesting.
Well, this all has been so interesting, and I'm sure we will do some more analysis of the runners' strategies later in the season. But for now, Kira, I'll pass it to you for our segment.
Thanks, Jaya. Welcome to a new segment we're calling Jetlag AU, where we discuss what might have happened if the world of the game were just a little different. I think one of the most interesting parts of this game format is the new dynamic between the two teams of chasers. Now, instead of just trying to get the tag quickly, the teams have to optimize for being the next team of runners. But I honestly can't tell if that's making the teams act more selfishly, putting their own priorities ahead of anything else, or more selflessly, because now there's another chaser team that can help if anything goes wrong. So, what I'd like to do is propose 2 scenarios for the moment when Adam and Michelle start their run. First, what do you think Sam and Toby's strategy would be if they were the only team of chasers?
It's hard to entirely separate from the strategy that we saw in this episode. And I definitely think that Sam and Toby were strategizing around being the second team of chasers on the scene and hoping that Ben and Brian were better positioned to get in front of Adam and Michelle quicker. But I do think that if they were the only team of chasers, their strategy would be different. It seems like at the end of this episode, they were talking about going back into Paris and then trying to route out of Paris the next morning. And I think that partially had to do with the fact that there was this big gap in trains towards Switzerland after the one that they were frozen for. And so I think that Sam and Toby's strategy, if they were the only chasers, would be to just follow behind Adam and Michelle on that same line, maybe stay where they were in Champagne-Ardenne and get in around 10 a.m. the next morning and just hope that there were enough delays in getting challenges and coins and connections that they weren't so far behind. But I don't know that they would have gone for a higher risk strategy knowing that they were the only chasers.
I think I disagree with you because I feel like Sam and Toby at the beginning of their chaser run functionally kind of were the only team of chasers, where Ben and Brian were positioned so badly that they were almost useless in Paris. And so I think at least that first move of taking the taxi down, trying to catch them at the station, getting frozen, etc., I think they would have probably done that anyways because they had to go to the station to get anywhere. But I wonder if it was just them, they would have still gone over to Paris and then maybe taken the high speed south to Lyon and taken the train up that they were suggesting that Ben and Brian do in the morning, or just follow behind Adam and Michelle a couple hours. I'm not sure, but I think they would be more inclined to keep doing the same thing because it seems like they both know and are afraid of Ben and Brian just going rogue.
Do you think they would have been more inclined to reroute their Uber and try to get the catch immediately if they didn't have a backup chaser team to depend on?
That's interesting because my read of that situation, and I do think that they ultimately made the right choice, was that they were expecting to be frozen because they knew Michelle and Adam knew that they were the team that was there. And I think that they accurately guessed that they would be frozen in the next few minutes and that it was at least better to be frozen in Champagne-Ardenne with the chance of Adam and Michelle's train being delayed a few extra minutes and being able to make the tag there instead of being frozen in this less advantageous spot close by, but a little bit more out in the middle of nowhere. That being said, it's tough because I do think in this alternate universe that we're imagining, maybe the freeze would not be free. And so maybe Adam and Michelle would not be so quick to use that freeze at the beginning of their run. But now I'm getting way too into the weeds.
No, because that was also something that I was thinking about was they, from doing the Pinpoint the Chasers challenge, got enough coins to make it all the way to Strasbourg. Had they needed to use some of those coins to freeze Sam and Toby, I don't know that they would have been as willing to do it, but I do think they would have probably figured out that it's kind of their only option, because Sam and Toby could so easily just get to the station after their frozen period before Adam and Michelle were able to get on the train.
Yeah. Exactly.
So then, what do you think Ben and Brian's strategy would be if they were the only team of chasers? So we're saying in this alternate situation, somehow through the magic of alternate reality, the catch still happened with Adam and Michelle in Prunay, but Ben and Brian are still en route to Paris.
So through the magic of snake roadblocks.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they would have played it a little safer. Yeah. I think without another team of chasers to sort of clean up after them if their plan goes terribly, terribly wrong, they're not going to be making such a risky move as try and get through the Charles de Gaulle airport in 30 minutes in the morning. Like, I just don't think that's something that they'd be as gung-ho about doing. And so I think maybe they would be more likely to be like, okay, we're kind of screwed in Paris. We need to just get deep into their territory and cede some positioning and take in that high speed south to Lyon.
I don't know. I do think that being the only team of chasers means that you can't be so high risk. But Ben and Brian really were so out there.
They're so confident about it.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I'm like, are they using this confidence to try and convince themselves that it's the right idea? Are they doubling down on it because Sam is so adamant that they shouldn't do it and they're stubborn? Or do they genuinely think it's their best move and it's not that risky? I don't know.
Based on this discussion, it seems like both teams are being influenced by the fact that there are two teams of chasers. Do you think it's making them act more selfishly or more selflessly?
I think it depends on the team.
Yeah, I think it's different for the teams.
And I'm honestly pleasantly surprised by how much of this season does delve back into kind of the psychological games of, I think Ben and Brian are being more self-focused on getting their tag, getting their run, and therefore being riskier. But I think that's not just because they know there's another team. That's because they know there's another team that they are confident they will be able to kind of manipulate to do what they want.
Yes.
And I think here, again, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised / shocked that Sam and Toby are being so collaborative for some reason. I think I was predicting them to not be as open to the idea of collaboration because I think they have a good team dynamic within the two of them and that they would be able to kind of run with that. But the fact that they clearly did research for what would be the best route for Ben and Brian, knowing that that was leading them up to be in a better position than they were in, I think that is because they really believe that the best way to get the tag and to beat the other team is by working with the other chasers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I think Ben and Brian are being bold, knowing that the other team of chasers wants to work with them and can deal with it, and like will be willing to continue working with them if potentially they make a risky move that doesn't pay out, or like will have taken the safe route.
Ben and Brian are really burning bridges.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, the other teams aren't going to want to work with them much later in the season because they are sort of screwing everybody else over. But also, maybe it's going to work out for them. Like, maybe it
because as soon as they
working.
become the runners, it doesn't matter anyway because runners are the solo teams. So maybe they're just banking on being the runners, and then it doesn't matter if the chasers don't like the way you've worked with them because they want to tag you anyway.
Although what I will say is Sam was able to get Ben and Brian to reveal their plan. So there was definitely...
Yeah, they both folded instantly.
Well, not instantly. He had to do the kind of hang-up, call-back method, but there was some...
But he could tell that they were hiding something because they were giggling about it the whole time. I do think that there was
some, like, psychological read or, like, something there as well, which I have found super interesting.
Real Housewives. All right, well, with that, I will pass things over to Casey.
Thanks, Kira. Today, the two of you will be playing a game I'm calling The Flight is Right. In this episode, we see Ben and Brian weigh the options of stringing together some trains in the hopes of getting ahead of the runners, or taking a direct flight, which is much faster and would hypothetically get them in front of Adam and Michelle much earlier. A flight is pretty much always going to be faster than a train, and in Europe, a flight may also often be cheaper. Here's how The Flight is Right will work. I'll give you two locations, and you will each predict the difference in duration and price between a flight and a train between them.
Ooh.
Whoever guesses the closest will get 1 point for each. And for ease of researching this game, I am using Rome to Rio, which gives a price range and an average duration that I am choosing the middle of for my answers. Your first locations are Paris to Zurich.
Paris to Zurich, I'm gonna say, is between 1/4 and 1/5 of the length of Europe. And I assume that the length of Europe is about a 4-hour flight. So I'm gonna say...
in which direction? Okay.
I'm gonna say that the length of the flight, I'm gonna be so wrong. I'm gonna say it's between 45 minutes and 75 minutes. So I'll say it's an hour-long flight.
I was gonna guess an hour to an hour and a half.
And I will say
flight.
it's a 2.5 hour long, between 2.5 hours and 3 hour long train ride.
I think I'll say an hour and 15 minutes for a flight, but I think the train is gonna be longer than that because you have to go from the Paris train network to the Swiss train network. So I think I'm gonna go like 3 or 4. I'll say 4 hours so that we have very different guesses.
Okay, I'm going to say that the difference in time is 2.5 hours.
And I'm going to say the difference is 3 hours. Difference in price?
I think it's going to be like a lot. I'm going to say it's a difference of $100.
I also want to say a difference of $100. Okay, I'll just go down to like 90 and I can take below 100 and you can take above 100.
So you each get 1 point.
Ooh.
Jaya was closer with it's just under a 3-hour difference. And Kira was closer in that the price difference that the website gave to me was $132.
I feel so good about that.
Wow.
Rome to Berlin.
Ooh. Okay. North-ish of Germany, middle of Italy.
I would say that Rome to Berlin is 1/3 of the distance of Europe.
Okay.
Which means I think... What do I mean? What does that mean? I think it's a 2-hour flight. I think that it is, like, taking into account that you're at cruising altitude for only a percentage of the flight. I think it's going to be between an hour 45 and 2 hours.
Okay. I think it's definitely going to be longer than 2 hours, but not by much, in my mind. Train is going to be like 9 hours.
7 days. I think it's going to be so long.
Difference, I'm gonna give it like a 8-hour difference, maybe 7-hour difference.
I'm gonna say a difference of 6 hours.
We can just take below 7 hours, above 7 hours, maybe? Yeah? Okay. Price, I think, is going to be... I was going to say more similar, but it's more similar relatively because I think they're both going to be more expensive, of course, because it's a much longer distance.
I sort of disagree. I think that it's going to be a way bigger price difference. I think it's going to be a difference of like $200.
Okay, I'm going to take below 200.
I'll say above 200.
That is 2 points to Jaya.
No!
Whoa!
The differences
Yay!
I have are 8 hours and 45 minutes and $117.
Whoa.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Madrid to Copenhagen.
Oh, that's a trek.
Yikes.
That's going to be longer than Berlin to Rome, but I don't think by a ton. I'm going to say the flight is going to be... It can't be 8 hours, because the flight from DC to California is like 6. So I'm going to say it's 6 hours.
I think by train it might be like 18 hours.
Yeah.
Does that sound crazy? I might say it's a difference of 12 hours or more.
I also wanted to say about 12 hours. Do we want... One of us can go over and one of us can go under? The price difference.
Oh my gosh.
The train's gonna be way more expensive, and I'm not even gonna try and logic my way through it. I'm gonna say $350.
I'll say less than that.
Okay. So I'm going... The difference in plane versus train time is less than 12 hours. Kira, you have more than 12 hours. And then difference in price, I have more than $350, and you have less than $350.
This is so funny because this is not really how I planned this game, but you both are so intent on going for the same number and then casting it up or down.
Well, it's because I think every time you say something, I'm like, yeah, that's about what I was thinking.
It's just so funny. But that's 2 points to Kira. The time difference is 19 hours and 38 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And the price...
19?
Yes.
I thought it was going to be like a 19-hour train total.
No, it's up more.
Wow.
And the price difference is $305.
Damn. Okay, so $350, we were not far.
No, not at all.
This is crazy.
Okay. Last, something that I have taken.
Oh no.
Between Glasgow, Scotland, and Cardiff, Wales.
I'll say it's between half an hour and 2 hours. So I'll say on average, I'll put it at 75 minutes. I'll say on average it's 90 minutes.
I think it's definitely going to be less than that on a plane. I think the difference, like, it's definitely going to be more by train.
Yes.
How much more? I'm going to say 3 hours.
I was going to say like 6 hours.
Beautiful.
I feel like UK trains are not crazy, but are much more expensive than I want or think that they will be.
Okay.
Is that helpful knowledge? I think that's going to be a difference of $150. I have no idea.
I'm going to say less than that.
You each get a point.
Wow, we're crushing this.
So hard.
So the time difference I have is 5 hours and 9 minutes.
That's so different.
And then the price difference, I have $67.
How did you get between them?
Oh, wow.
Well,
okay.
And the reason I put this on here is because when I was traveling between Glasgow and Cardiff, I really wanted to take the train, but I found out pretty late that I was going, and so it was just super expensive, and it was much longer, and it just didn't really make sense. But I was looking at flights, and there was an option that I will never forget. There was an option to go from Glasgow to Cardiff with a layover in Iceland for like $3,000. And I was like,
why is that an option?
I was like, respectfully, this has to be a front for something. Because who is taking this $3,000 flight from Glasgow to Cardiff by going through Iceland? Anyway, well, both of you have kind of finagled my game to tie perfectly.
That was great. Kira, I'm so glad we worked together like that.
That was so hard.
Thank you for unionizing with me.
I know, you really collaborated against me. But with that, I will pass things back to Kira.
Thanks, Casey. Let's get into our rose Bud Thorn. So, Jaya, why don't you get us started?
My rose was the shot of Adam and Michelle trying to sneak around in the background while Sam and Toby had just set up their shot to, like, catch them making paper airplanes and, like, dropping paper, took me out. That was so funny. The Mission Impossible vibes of that whole scene
so funny.
Really made me laugh. My thorn is that they made a lot of innuendos in this episode, and they're just so sad when Tom Scott isn't around to look into the camera about it. And my bud is that I genuinely think Adam and Michelle have a really good shot of making it so far into their territory that if it was game day 2 right now, I would think they're gonna win from this. But because it's still the beginning of the game, I'm just so nervous for them and so excited to see what happens, and I hope Ben and Brian get on that airplane and then also it explodes.
No!
I'm gonna call in a bomb threat.
Casey, how about you?
My rose is that this episode was just so excellent, and it seems like this season so far, the stakes have been very high. There's been a lot of urgency with the chasers, and nowhere was it more evident to me than both uses of a taxi in this episode. When Adam and Michelle rerouted to make the tag, and when Sam and Toby pointed to where Adam and Michelle were, I just thought that was cinema. But my thorn is that this game, while very urgent, is also very temperamental. And I was getting really excited that Sam and Toby had such a genius move planned after that freeze and clearing the curse and then heading back to Paris. But the bus delay took that from me, and I'm personally offended. And my bud is that the chaser dynamics have already been so delicious, but as Ben and Brian chase their chance at a run, and Sam and Toby worry about Adam and Michelle winning the whole thing, I predict some more tense phone calls ahead.
Me too.
Yeah.
My rose is that we saw some stunning uses of the power-ups this episode. It's so satisfying to see just a perfectly timed freeze, and we got to see 2 of them. My thorn, I tend to get nervous rooting for a runner to actually make it to their end location, because then the game will end and I want the seasons to be longer, not shorter. But I am still kind of bummed that Sam and Toby never got to do their literally insane, incredible sneak past Adam and Michelle, where they maybe could have just won the game right then and there. And my bud is maybe new form of transportation in tag. I'm so curious about the strategy for the team that's clearly so behind. We're like, if the plane doesn't work, then what do Ben and Brian even do? And if the plane does work, then what do Sam and Toby even do? I just feel like it's so delicious to think about. And with that, thank you for waiting at Baggage Claim. Let us know your thoughts on socials at baggageclaimpod or over email, which is in the episode description. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a comment or give us a follow. We'll see you next week at the American Girl Doll Baggage Claim. It's a win for feminism all around, and you can pick up a Coconut the dog when you leave. Goodbye.
Hooray!
Goodbye! Coconut! Hello, Baggage Claim fans. This is a weird outro, but I come to you from the parking lot of the only Buc-ee's in Virginia. I think it's one of the most recent Buc-ee's, and I just wanted to tell you all that my haul, I got, of course, beaver nuggets, as seen on Jetlag, and I got a present for Casey and Kira, which we might have audio of me showing it to them. I got all of us matching, this is so stupid, I got all of us matching Buc-ee's branded luggage tags, so that when we pick up our bags at Baggage Claim, they're also Jetlag. Okay, love you guys, bye. As we all know, our podcast is called Baggage Claim.
Uh-oh.
So what I found was I got all of us matching Buc-ee's bag tags.